I am sitting in Dubai. I've been sitting here for 22 years. Now, I've traveled a bit in between. Yeah, so I'm
That's not all you do. Tell us a bit more about your brain.
Work with multiple brains, so the head, the heart, and the gut intelligences, get them all talking and communicating together. And I also teach that modality to coaches as well. So yeah, that's what I love to do. I also teach NLP. Yeah, I've been doing NLP for a long time. So M-braining kind of picks up where NLP leaves off with me, and I'll tell you.
Exactly, and it's fascinating when you start part of coaching.
I left the Middle East exactly 5 years ago. So that's my life in a nutshell.
I didn't realise we were in the Middle East at the same time, but I was in Dubai, Ras Al Khaimah around that time, and you were in Abu Dhabi. So thank you for that. And I'm Donna Burfield, and I am a joy and purpose coach, but I love working with parents, and because it combines my two loves, education, which I was in for 26 years, from Montessori to secondary learning support, and being a parent, which I have been for 24 wonderful, glorious years. So that is a huge, huge passion. I also run Coaches Supporting Coaches here in Dubai, and this is where we have in-person events, so we can... what do we do, Wendy? We do a lot. We
talk a lot, we discuss a lot, we practice, we collaborate, we do all sorts of wonderful things.
Yeah, and it's great because it builds our competencies and our confidences as well, because, you know, it can be quite lonely, quite overwhelming at times, and it's nice to have that safe space where confidentiality is definitely in place. So that's us. Today we're going to be talking about being overqualified versus the University of Life. And what does that mean to each of us, and how in our profession, or if we change career, does that have an impact on us? So I'm going to open the floor to anyone. What comes up for you when we talk about being overqualified?
Hey, Lawrence.
Overqualified, well, depends on how you're defining your terms and the culture. I mean, you get definitions of terms meaning different things to different people. And I think we have to be sensitive to that. But generally, if you talk about being overqualified, I think you revert back to academic qualifications, degrees, master's degrees and PhDs, which have had their time, but should have been gone long ago, in my experience. I think 30 years ago, the whole system should have been changed 30 or 40 years ago. And they're beginning to think about it now, which means another 6 or 7 generations have gone through school. If you consider a school generation as 5 years, then I believe that in the UK, even especially, which purports to have led the world, the developing world in education, I'm talking about the developing world, over the last 50 years or so. I've just come back from Pakistan a few years ago, and I was quality assurance leader for one of the biggest school systems on a consultancy, while they brought in the Dubai KHAD system. They're still using O-levels, traditional O-levels. They haven't shifted up even to GCSEs. And the relevance of academic learning and academic qualifications, even A-levels, frankly, to a world of work. I mean, if universities, it's been realized now, I've been shouting it out from the rooftops for 10 years, but it's realized now that if universities don't shift towards practical skill sets and technological shifts, month by month almost, then they will become, defunct. They will lose their licenses to run as a training institute. And I've spent many, many years, I'm going back 15 years, I've been trying to stop young people in the Middle East, Emiratis, looking for master's degrees and PhDs, because I was a manager with the higher colleges and a university dean. And I've been trying to stop my 8 years in Aramco working with 100 young people, trainees, who've got their degrees or master's degrees and come into it, trying to stop them for looking for PhDs online. Lawrence, show me a PhD. No, I'm not going to show you a PhD. I'll show you a professional doctorate and a professional master's degree, but I'm not going to look for PhDs because that's a 400-year-old qualification. It's a Doctor of Philosophy. It's just basically originally for people who wanted to be professors. So it's highly academic with one focus. And the problem is that one focus now is out of date 2 or 3 years later because of the shifts in, pestle shifts that we live through all the time. So I said, if you want to find a doctorate and you can you're going to get a scholarship for it from Aramco or wherever, then look for a professional doctorate that's related to your work and business environment, because they invariably have 6 or 7 points of focus, not one. So employability is great. In fact, you can't even get into a university with a PhD. You have to have the equivalence in papers that have been published and conferences that you've been invited on. And without the two, you won't get a job. So even having a PhD, you won't get a job, even in a university, even as a lowly lecturer, without that balance of, a good wealth of experience in conferences and publications. So I think it's all just a load of out-of-date traditional waffle, frankly, mainly because the administrators and the governors in government and the people in charge haven't got a clue what they're doing because they're out of date. They're all in their 50s and 60s. How does that relate to the younger generation? Gen Zs and Gen Y? How does this ridiculous?
Yeah.
So I think I've started a rant. I'll bite my pen and
Breathe, Lawrence.
You've no idea.
No, I have to agree. Yeah. The information. Human knowledge is doubling every 12 hours. So when I think back to what I learned at school, that should be totally irrelevant in today's world. It's just craziness in terms of what information is out there. I think that has a massive effect on how people learn. So, for me, I don't consider myself to be very academic at all. When I left school, I went off to become I was the last trainee cook in the National Health Service. Yeah. So I was going to college 1 day a week, and I did an extra year because it was only 1 day a week. And I became a qualified chef. So, very skills related. And then I did my advanced courses and advanced patisserie. I specialized in wedding cakes, loved that. And then I damaged my back. And it was just like, oh, okay, University of Life. That was a big learning curve because you can't do a lot when you're horizontal. So getting back on my feet, I had to upskill, and I did some basic computer NVQ level 1 and 2 IT. Because when I was a little girl, they didn't do computer skills at work, at school. I also did, previous to that, I did my adult teaching certificate. That's City and Guilds. That's not recognised in this part of the world. It was a big shift. And I think similar to what Lawrence was saying earlier, once I qualified, I became an NVQ assessor, a D32, 33. So I became involved with assessing people's skills on the job. Yeah. And I think that was a UK initiative to give people some qualifications for the skills that they had, which was much needed back then. So,
Do you think they're looking now for more apprenticeships? And, when people are looking to employ people, are they looking more for those social life skills from that individual?
I'd say yes and no. I mean, it depends on where you are in the world. I know in Dubai, in the UAE, a lot of people will pull on, they're called interns here. So they come in for an internship. And I've seen it work well and also not so well. So it depends on the organization, but it depends on the person who is leading that internship experience. I've seen some, they completely fail because they're just, all right, you're in charge of our social media. And they're given a task or a responsibility without being given the support and the skills and the mentorship, because that's what the whole experience should be about. I've seen it work really well, and I've also seen it work not so well. It's like an extra pair of hands.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, I can see that as well. Lawrence, what comes up for you when I mentioned about the apprenticeships and looking for people skills and social skills, so to speak?
There is, as you probably know, there is a move afoot now to open back up technical colleges. I mean, when we were at school, a percentage on the bell curve of your O levels, a percentage were determined that they were going straight into work, and another percentage were determined by the system that they would go into a technical college and learn apprenticeship skills. And I remember the NVQs coming out. The wonderful thing about the national vocational qualifications was that you could do your first year or two of plumbing in St Austell in Cornwall, and then you could move over to a job in Darmstadt in Germany and take your NVQ3. And then you could go to Sweden and take your NVQ4. And that was a fabulous way to pick up not only employable skills and technical skill sets, but also to learn to work in different shifting environments and different management styles. I think it was a wonderful thing. And it's a shame the technical colleges were phased out by Mrs. Thatcher, if you remember. The A-level confidence.
yeah.
That was the A-level confidence trick, that she didn't want any more she didn't want the unemployment level to be seen to be rising. So she offered people who couldn't get a job during that huge recession, she offered them to keep their social security money if they started doing A-levels at a college or going to a college. And they could do up to 22 hours a week at a college and still get their social security money, as opposed to being employed because there weren't any jobs in the early 80s. And it kind of pushed A-levels and universities further. And at that time, you still had a grant to go to university. It was still more or less free. A couple of $1,000 a year, I think it was, to go to university. Yeah. And that all got phased out. But that left swathes, hundreds of thousands of young people being unemployable because employers did not want A-levels. They wanted people who could talk in an interview about some area of passion about the job they were applying for, which is why in the mid-90s in Australia, in Queensland, they initiated the Futures curriculum.
What's that?
I thought you were going to I thought you might ask me. I left that hanging just to see if anybody wanted to pick it up because I've been talking for a while.
Tell me more.
All right. So I failed everything at school because I wasn't given any choice. I was told by my dad, who was a college lecturer, you're going to do this, this, and this. The sciences that he loved. And he used to bring rats home and frogs, and we would dissect them on the dining table before dinner, which was foul and disgusting. And I hate the smell of formaldehyde now. It makes me want to run up the hills here. So I failed everything at school. And I learnt afterwards in my 20s to follow my passion, which was photography and visual communications. And I spent my early career as a photographer and a printer, and then going into colleges and teaching it, and then moving up the administration level. My point is that we had no choice. Yeah. And one of the problems with young people at school, such as me, is I do not fit the normal, and I've administered schools and colleges across Asia, from Sydney to Beijing to New Delhi. And I see this being pushed all the time in Asia and still in England, is you go to school all day and then in the evening you do homework all evening. Yeah. And that's the way it is. And then you hand it in the morning. And in Aramco schools and in English schools, since my own children, watching them struggle now through the last 10 years of GCSEs and A-levels, coming home crying at midnight because they haven't finished their homework. And then being a quality assurance assessor for education, I can see what's going on is the schools and the administration are so misinformed and chaotic. partly because the managers are not proper managers, they're teachers who have been given jobs and are not necessarily trained for those jobs. And the government are pushing down directives without knowing what the outcome's going to be. And every 3 or 4 years, they're changed on the job, so everything's shifted. It's just the way professional politicians work. So there's very little common sense at the top. And what is at the top is 20 years out of date. And the young people at the bottom are guinea pigs who are being abused, frankly. And I found out when I left school, that's not how I study. I can't do anything in the evenings. But if I get up at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, I can do more in those 3 hours than I could at 6 the night before. So that saved me and enabled me to follow my choices. But in Queensland, what they did was, Australia is such a massive country that those disparate communities on the periphery need different approaches, like you would have a different approach in Europe, like a different approach in Sweden than you would have in Lisbon, for example, or Toulouse. And so they said, right, let's find out what employers really need, because employers were saying to the government, I'm up here in Darwin or wherever, I've got an engineering firm, I've got 15 people I've interviewed from school with O and A levels, and I have no idea which one to bring in, because they've all got the same bits of paper and nothing to say about it. They have no life experience to talk about. So after 10,000 stakeholders came in over a couple of years, they changed the system and they gave the purse strings to the individual principals and heads in the various schools all around Australia and said, do whatever you think is right. So what came about in Queensland and then got, after a 3-4 year experiment, got petered out to other places because it was so successful, was this proof of concept of portfolio-based learning. So they weren't turning up with O-level certificates, they were turning up with a portfolio of practical skill sets. And that stemmed around internships, which you were talking about earlier, Wendy. You know, so instead of bored young men and ladies causing problems in classrooms when they're 14 and 15, they were individually being sent out into companies who were being paid tax stipends. They were actually receiving money for tax benefits from these companies as initiated by the government to put them into teams and treat them like adults. Well, generally, if you treat a teenager like an adult, they'll behave like an adult. But if as a school teacher with 30 people who are misbehaving in front of you, you're going to treat them like children and dictate to them, and they'll push back. So what happened was they were turning up then with these internship experiences all written down, real reports, real projects, like a real interview that somebody would, like you or I going for a job, would have a pile of projects at our behest and say, this is my experience. And that was the Futures curriculum.
Oh, that's great.
They knew basics, they called it. And that was more or less established in 95, 96, 97. So nearly 30
And it's
years.
still going now?
I don't know. I haven't kept in touch. I don't see why it would be stopped. I know it's been picked up in other countries.
It makes sense. As a trainee cook, because I was learning in such a huge environment, I can cook for 200 portions. And then we'd recruit a cook, somebody who'd just been certified at college as a cook, and they didn't have a clue because they're trained to cook for 2 or 4 people. So they were so out of their depth. It was like, I don't know how to do this. It's like, well, I'm the trainee cook. Let me show you. I think is it Gary Vee who says young people today should just do as many different jobs as possible, work out what they like and what they dislike, and just get that experience. I think it's so valuable. For me growing up in my teenage years, while I was still at school, 6 weeks summer holiday, I had a holiday job. So I was gathering experience. My first one, I worked at Millendreth Holiday Village, and helping out in the water sports. My first job of the day, lap bin bag and clean the beach, Wendy. Oh, it's disgusting what you can find on a beach. But then later on, I'd be hiring out deck chairs and canoes, and yeah, it was great fun. Loved it.
I did the same thing on Par Beach, my handsome.
Oh, did you?
I did. You rasp, anybody.
I love that you mentioned St Austell, because that's where I did my NVQ assessor training.
Technical College in St Austell.
Yeah.
No way. My dad was a
Absolutely.
lecturer there. He was in charge of science.
Well, no, I was in the kitchen, darling.
Yeah. It's amazing. What a small world, eh? I saw the exit. I did see the Exeter thing.
No, it's a very small world. But then I got promoted. I was giving out change in the amusement arcade.
I got promoted. I could do the whippy ice creams, Mr. Kelly ice creams. I could do the whippies in the truck and then hand it out to the kids on the beach. See?
Brilliant.
I was 14. I was 14 when I did that.
Yeah, but that's all character building, isn't it? Because, we're right there, we are working. It's physical, it's manual, but it's interacting with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I started off at W.H. Smith's Do It All. They had it was a DIY shop. Yeah, Do It All. And it was called Munchie's Coffee Bar. And I started off there on a Saturday, and then it was a Saturday and Sunday, and then it was after school. I I like to work, but I was working like 7 days a week as well as going to school. So I was 15 going on to 16. A couple of the managers left, and at 16 years of age, I was put in as a stand-in manager. And that was a huge confidence boost.
Do you think our experiences then when we were younger and the fact that we wanted to and really had to work to get pocket money, do you think that gave us an impetus later in life for self-confidence?
Yeah, and independence and social skills.
Yeah,
but with
social
independence,
skills, definitely.
With self-confidence, don't you get independence? If you're gaining self-confidence, you're taking more on your own shoulders, making your own decisions. I think it's a positive spiral, isn't it? Self-confidence and an impetus to, I think maybe intrinsic motivation.
Yeah, independence for me. I was staying in the summer holidays. I was staying with my grandparents, and they go to bed early. I'd be out partying all night. Because I could. I earned my own salary, and I was an independent young lady, so probably far too independent for what I should have been up to. But yeah.
But I would still say that you can become confident in that small world of yours. So like, whereas I was really confident in working in Munchie's Coffee Bar, I would get all the orders, I would do the cooking, I would do the till, I would close. So I was extremely resilient and reliable.
Yeah.
But then you took me out of that world. Even at that age, I was still nervous about going into town, walking into a shop by myself. I would go bright red. And then I ended up leaving at 17, and I went off to Israel. I had to get away from, I was in Harlow at that point in Essex. And there was a lot of drugs around, crime. There was issues at home. And I thought, if I don't leave, and I had no qualifications, I left school with 0 qualifications. If I do not get out of here, I will be stuck in Munchie's Coffee Bar for the rest of my life, or stacking shelves. And that I had to make a decision. That fear of my shyness and not being good enough and worthy enough, or it was, to get out. So I got out, and I was a bag of nerves flying out to Israel. I got picked up, interviewed. It was a horrendous experience, but I'm glad I did it.
At what age, Donna?
17.
My
Wow.
gosh.
I was
Yeah.
30 when I got on a flight to Dubai, and I experienced exactly the same.
Really?
Yeah, leaving the UK and going abroad. I think it's so significant. It doesn't matter on the age.
Yeah.
You know, you tackled it young, and you know you've been up and running since. But for me, it was a massive stepping stone moving from the southwest of the UK, so Devon and then Cornwall, and then moving up to take a job in London. To
Yeah.
me, it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
scary. But looking back, it was definitely a stepping stone.
I couldn't wait. I mean, if you're talking about life experience, the University of Life, if you
Yeah.
corralled and put together our work experiences before, let's say, we were 25, I think you'd find they were massive compared to what kids are doing now. My first job, I took my Triumph motorcycle up to London, and my first job was in Oxford Street in an office. Miss London newspaper, Miss London magazine was given out at tube stations, and I would be interviewing the secretaries who wanted to go for a job in that. I think I lasted a month because I hated the tube, so I gave up. Then I went to work in Germany, selling encyclopedias door to door in Germany in the winter.
Wow.
Shop in a village, and if you didn't sell them, you didn't eat because you didn't earn any money. You do that for a year, you know, and then be a security guard, 14-hour shifts, 7 days a week, 98 hours a week, week on, week off, week on, week off, for years. And that's how I did my A-levels. In that shifts, I did my A-levels to go to university. And I was 27 before I went to university. So I had 8-9 years of massive work experience. Let's talk about the University of Life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real skills about people management, real skills about socialization, real skills about confidence building and learning from your mistakes.
Yeah.
And problem solving.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just, yeah. How am I going to handle this customer or this person or this situation? What do I do? Yeah.
And independence, because I mean, I moved in with a lovely lady, and we bought a flat in London in 85, 86, and I started my full-time degree just as Black Monday recession hit and all the Bank of England mortgage rates doubled.
Wow.
It was either you stay at university and don't eat, or you go and get a job and stay at university. So I've worked through university for 14 years. I've been at university for 14 years altogether, and I've worked all the way through that. And the only way I could do it in London was to look at my timetable, and those empty slots in my timetable teach people to drive for £7.50 an hour. So I was a driving instructor for 9 years all the way through uni. Otherwise, I couldn't earn the cash to pay the mortgage. Now, they talk about snowflakes. They talk about snowflakes at college these days, don't they?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So, okay. So when you change career, as you're getting, you know, but I think it's quite normal when you get to like your 40s, mid 40s, 50s, that you start thinking whether you're going to stay on that track or you want to change. When looking for another job, can your life experiences and your qualifications kind of hold you back?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they can. What do you think, Wendy?
Yeah, I'm just thinking back for me, because I was in catering for lots of years and sort of teaching cookery classes and cake decoration and stuff. And then I damaged my back. So having a gap in your CV is always very questionable. And I was retraining at that time. So doing the IT skills, doing introduction to counselling, psychology. I gave up on that one. Did my head in.
Psychology did my head in.
It did. But I picked it up later in form of NLP, because I don't feel academic, and doing all of that knowledge-based learning, it wouldn't go in. but give me something usable, I've got it. So when I completed my MBQ assessor awards and stuff, and I was going, back on my feet, I sent off, I think it was 68 copies of my CV all over the UK, just looking for a job, because they don't have many kind of jobs like that in Cornwall. So it was picked up by a hotel group in London. And what they picked up on was my IT skills I'd only just learned, and my adult teaching certificate, and said, come and train our front desk systems. So I was training receptionists on 3 different front desk systems in 6 hotels.
Mm-hmm.
So that phone call is like, I can't do that. Luckily, I was living with my grandmother at the time, and she said, darling, you can do anything as long as you're prepared to work hard enough.
Yeah.
And I thought, absolutely. So I phoned back and said, okay, I'm interested. Tell me more. They said, come and visit us next week. So I did, and they offered me the job on the spot. So
That's really interesting how you said that. Because, well, just all of it really. But I mean, that bit about, no, I couldn't do that, and darling, you could do it.
Yeah.
Because I've been in the right place at the right time to get those phone calls. So I've been living in Germany with my wife and new baby, and the phone rings one day and says, would you like to come to Bahrain and be a dean in a university? A new university, we need you to help set it up. Those off the cuff, could I think, would you say, oh no, I don't think I could do that? Or would you jump at the chance? Or if you're working in Abu Dhabi in the military college and you get a phone call one day from the higher colleges saying, would you like to come and be a manager with us, because we need a new degree written in communication and media studies. We've only got 6 weeks lead time. You've still got to interview all the students in Abu Dhabi and Dubai men's and women's colleges. Could you do that in 6 weeks? Hell yes.
Absolutely. Of course I can.
Absolutely. There's nothing I think that I could do.
But that's to do with your self-worth.
Yeah, but
Because
what's that come from?
You're worthy.
But when you left school with nothing, you didn't.
I wouldn't. Yeah.
You wouldn't.
I don't know. I have to be honest. I still struggle with self-worth.
I don't even think about self-worth though. I never think about it. I just think that's an opportunity, a challenge, and I want to do it because I love teaching, because I love being with students. So I want to do those things. So hell yeah, I'll come and do that for you. I got an award from Sheikh Nayam for that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, in front of 2,000 people. Yeah.
Well,
he gave me a gold-edged bisht because we got that degree accredited so easily and quickly. It's good.
Oh, that's messy treatment, isn't it?
Sorry?
That's messy treatment, as in Messi the footballer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering whether that work experience, that life experience that we're talking about, that university of life, does that not instill in you a sort of gambate Japanese type, I can do it attitude? I don't even think about self-worth.
You see a lot of young people that have that what's the word I'm looking for? It can border on arrogance, that I can do anything, that will do that.
Well, where does that belief come from? Yeah, where does that
belief?
So for me, I had lots of doubts and reservations, but then it was my grandmother's belief we can do anything. And it's like, actually, I can. So is it a family belief? Is it your environment? Is it your beliefs on what's possible and what isn't?
I think it's partly.
Thinking about it, a couple of my family members, an uncle and also a cousin, dyslexic. So they really, really struggled in school, didn't do well at all. My uncle went on to become a chief engineer on ships. I mean, how do you become a chief engineer? But he was always tinkering around with bikes and engines. And if there was a problem, one story he shares, he would go and lie inside of the engine, and based on the vibrations and listening, he could work out what the problem was. I mean, isn't that brilliant?
Yeah.
And that just means that he has a different style of, if it's learning or expertise. Because that's what it comes down to. It's not knowing the ins and outs and being able to write the names of everything. NLP is a great example. The terminology sucks. It's so bad on so many levels. Even the name, neuro-linguistic programming. I mean, what does that mean? But, you know, these big words scare a lot of people. They scare me. And I end up using them because I'm curious and I need to simplify everything. But that's just how I learn best and how I make sense of the world. And other people are absolute geniuses. You can't have a conversation with them, but they're so highly intelligent. Yeah. So I think it really depends on who you are, what your beliefs are, and how you approach opportunities. I mean, I've always thought I've never had career goals. It's always been based on opportunities. When I had this phone call, and then I'm in London for 2.5 years, conquer my job, start to get a bit bored now. And then my uncle phones me, he was in Dubai, and said, why don't you come to Dubai? And I was just like, well, why not? And I asked the visa options and whatever, how does it work? British passport, just come over.
Yeah.
That's what I did. No job, no nothing.
You see, I'm fearless that way. Hopping on a plane, going anywhere now, you know, that's not a problem. Put me in a new situation, I can do. But if you said to me, I think because I've struggled so much academically, if it is to do with people that are academic, I automatically, and I know with coaching, I'm a lot better now, but I would automatically feel inferior and say I'm not good enough before they told me I'm not good enough, because I had it so much when I was a nanny for 7 years. My bosses, who were all extremely wealthy, a lot of them businesses or what have you, telling me I wasn't worthy. That, you know, so for 7 years, not only to feel unworthy and leave school with no qualifications and with the family background I had, to then go and work for people that you think would be better, telling you are basically my servant and that's all you're good for. For 7 years,
to experience. I mean, at school, I was doing really well. And then a couple of teachers changed. I didn't relate to them at all. And I just got moved from the top class in maths and science. I was in the top performing class and I got moved down because I didn't like the teachers, basically. So if you don't connect and relate to your teacher, it doesn't become a strength topic for you. So, I mean, teachers have got a lot to answer for. Their role is key in how we learn, but then it's not just how we learn, but it's who we then become. Because I've always avoided maths. I mean, I hated algebra, never used it. Don't like it. I'm sorry, but I don't. So, that's not my strength. And just being put off completely from anything academic. I don't have a university degree. I was sharing with Donna earlier that I'm just renewing my visa at the moment. And in Dubai, if you don't have a university degree, you get called something else, no matter what your role is. So right now, I'm a telecommunications assistant. In the past, I've been a room service supervisor. I've been a sales executive. And I just think it's funny. It's a good job that I'm not driven by status, because that would impact what I could do here. But
there they have a problem where they have a certain number of professors visas, so they have to give you another one. It doesn't say professor; it says something else. It could be HR officer. It's just to get you in the country. I remember that.
Well,
That was
not
a
only to get you into
Also
the
had
country.
a partner visa and an investor's visa. So, it just depends on the role, whatever works.
I was working in the schools, and I was a learning support assistant for a secondary school, and my visa through the school said babysitter. That pissed me off. I'm sorry. That really pissed me off. And I'm not status driven either, but come on, the amount of money I had invested because the school did not invest in my education or promotion. I did that independently. To be called a babysitter when the teachers aren't looking after the students and they're giving them to me and I'm teaching them, not on. That was, that stuck in my throat, Wendy. That got stuck in my throat.
I'm not surprised at all. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to say before we wrap up, is there anything that you would like to say to people who may be feeling a little bit, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, but looking for jobs, being told they were overqualified, and, obviously they're going to feel that.
Yeah, I would say, I had a really good opportunity come my way because of my LinkedIn profile, because I give a little synopsis of, the projects of my learning, what I took away really from each of my roles. Through LinkedIn, I was asked to become an associate to facilitate some elective programs for different business schools around the world.
Yeah.
I talk about imposter syndrome the first time. It's like, really? It's little me up here? Because it's soft skills, and that's something I know a thing or two about. So I'd say sort of tidy up your LinkedIn, make it relevant and to the point. I'd also say that when I'm looking to work with somebody or to employ somebody, I want to know what other people say about them. So I think testimonials from other people are so valid because it's coming from somebody else's experience rather than Wendy saying, Wendy's wonderful and Wendy does this and But
put it on that platform, though. LinkedIn is a good platform to do that, rather than doing it on Instagram where you're doing a screenshot of somebody's text message saying you're great.
Because LinkedIn can align with your CV. Yeah. I mean, I get projects and some people ask for my CV. It's like, I haven't updated it. Well, the client's requesting it, but I'm not looking for a job. Here's my LinkedIn profile. Just, that says everything that they could possibly need to know. But on LinkedIn, in another way, when I have applied for jobs because I don't have a university degree, that's one of the first filters, so it doesn't go anywhere. So I've never sort of got a job interview from LinkedIn because I don't have that university degree, and that's usually one of the criteria. And if you don't have that, then, on the filters, you just don't move any further. But I've got some nice connects on LinkedIn from people who are looking, if somebody's looking for something specific, and should I pop up into their radar, it often leads to a conversation.
That's really interesting.
Going back to what Lawrence says, put in your projects, put in some examples of your experience. As well as your qualifications. If you look on my LinkedIn, I look highly qualified because I've done a lot, but no university degrees. So, and
that's okay. A piece of paper doesn't define your capabilities.
Oh, a couple of times in my life, I've had people suggest and even offer to give me a fake certificate, and I say thank you, no thank you. That just it doesn't sit well with me. No. But that's something else that makes it questionable, the validity. Is it true or not? Yeah. And in the UAE, I don't know about your experience, Lawrence, but everybody wants a certificate for every course they do. They always want a piece of paper so they can add it.
Okay, I've put a couple of things in the chat relating to this. you're talking about not being able to get certain jobs because you don't tick the box for having a degree.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at the end of my career, and in the last 10 years of my career, I was unable to get any jobs because I have too many degrees.
I've had that too.
Yeah.
So I've put something interesting in here. I've put a YouTube to a young lady who stands up in Parliament and talks about schooling. And it's really, really a good 3 or 4 minutes listen. She's making a speech in Parliament in the UK about the quality and the practicality of school education. You mentioned algebra, which is why I thought about it.
Yeah.
I've put a website up here to the National Life Skills Academy, which is a life skills academy that I've opened up with 170 topics, which came from 2 years of international research from parents and educators that young people want to learn. So there's about 100 podcasts in there about life skills, things they don't learn at school, but they will need moving forward, and things they hear on the news. They don't know what it means. So and there's also my daughter's LinkedIn. And I put that up there because as you talk about the quality and the usefulness of LinkedIn, she was never particularly academic, unlike her younger sister. So getting her into university was, we needed to do something. So I said, right, I'm going to help you build a LinkedIn, and we'll put every program and project you've done, and we'll give you more to do in there. And she got unconditional offers from good universities because of her LinkedIn and what she said about the passion for the degree she wanted to do. It's in the statement. And the reason I put the National Life Skills together is to help young people get that next step up the ladder, Maslow's hierarchy, the self-esteem, because they've managed to put their projects forward and they've managed to do extra little Future Learn or Coursera MOOCs or whatever that have helped them expand that range of learning beyond school to be actually practical, useful, as opposed to purely academic, but the actual useful skill sets, those 7 skill sets that people are looking for, self-administration and understanding finance and team working and all of those things that you look for in a degree. Because as a quality assurance assessor for degree programs and master's degrees, as you progress from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 or year 4, towards year 3 and 4 become far more socialized and organizational skills like team working. And if you have a degree that doesn't have team working involved in the last couple of years, you're not likely to keep your license. You're likely to lose your license by the higher education authority. Okay. And it's that kind of thing. But if people look at Sheena's LinkedIn and they look at the way it's been constructed and what's in it for an 18-year-old girl,
fabulous.
That will help get them into college or help get them a job by following that kind of pattern there. Mine, on the other hand, has got 40 years of experience in it, and it's way too much. And I've had recruiters in the last 2 or 3 years say, Lawrence, lose your doctorate, lose these degrees, lose about 10 years of experience here, just cut it in half, just get rid of it. It didn't happen. So I've been unemployable, which is why I'm a trainer. Well, I'm a consultant, really. No.
Yeah.
I thought I'd come back to England and get a good job as a principal or as a dean, and didn't even get interviews.
Too qualified.
It's shocking, eh? It really is shocking. Now, Lawrence, you could see that I was a bit distracted because I was seeing how I could put this into chat. I don't do technology. So once we finish off here, I will try and put those in the links of, definitely tomorrow or the next day when I do the replay, I will add all these links into there. Or again, you're very free to comment when the replay comes out and pop those in to the comment section.
Can you see those links now?
Yes.
Can anybody see those links?
No.
They're actually in private chat.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So if they go in comments, do they become?
I think only on the live.
I understand.
Yeah.
Private chat.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Lawrence, what I'll do is I will put all this again, guys. When I do the replay post, please put those links in.
Yeah.
And I always tag you anyway. If we're on LinkedIn or Facebook or what have you, you're tagged. So anybody that's watching wants to get in direct contact, that's all you have to do is click on their names as well to get that information.
Because I discovered recently that if you're on Zoom or Teams and there's lots of stuff going up in the chat, you can scroll up from the bottom at the end and copy it into a Word document. I didn't know you could do that.
There's actually 3 dots and you can save the text.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Even easier.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You see, you learn something every day, Wendy.
Absolutely.
Peer teaching is the way forward. Peer support and peer teaching.
And I'm really sorry that we didn't get onto all the other fabulous things that you do. Lawrence, you're going to have to come back on again, because to talk about your Samaritans and doing the prison and doing your work there, I mean, you've got a wealth of really interesting topics, as have you, Wendy. So, but the time has just flown by, and Lawrence, I know you've got to scoot right off. So as we're closing, I just want to say thank you both very, very, very much for making time to discuss this. And it just shows what, you know, hard graft does for you as a person, and, you know, building your confidence and your self-worth, and getting out there and being curious and talking to people. That is one of your greatest gifts that you can receive and to give. So on behalf of myself and Wendy and Lawrence, I'd like to bid you all a good evening. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.